Let's get started. I am Michelle St. Ange, and I am the Assistant Director of Graduate Admissions. And I'm pleased tonight to welcome you here as participants to SUNY Plattsburgh's Natural Resources and Ecology Masters of Science degree informational webinar. I'm also very pleased to be joined by Dr. Mark Lesser and a couple of his students. Before we get started, I'd love to have you introduce yourselves. Go ahead, Dr. Lesser.
So, hello, I'm Dr. Mark Lesser, like Michelle said. I'm the coordinator of the graduate program, I'm also faculty in the Center for Earth and Environmental Science, and where I am a forest ecologist is my main research focus. I teach a variety of classes in forest ecology, dendrology, plant ecology, and so on. And I'm really interested research-wise in how tree species or where tree species grow and why they stop growing where they do, what sets their distributional limits.
Thank you, Mark. And our students who are joining us today, Allison, would you like to say a quick hello?
Hi, I'm Allison. I'm a graduate student. It's my first semester here. I'm working under Dr. Tim Myhook on microplastic research in Lake Champlain, in LCRI, Lake Champlain Research Institute.
Thanks for joining us, Allison. And Kevin?
Hi, my name is Kevin Dernier. I'm another grad student here. I'm on the internship track, and I'm working under Dr. Danielle Garneau. I've done an internship with the Vermont Center for Eco Studies, who are a wonderful group if you're looking to do any work with them. Shameless plug. Specifically looking or working with high elevation montane bird community on Mount Mansfield in Vermont, and as well as on Mount Washington in New Hampshire. A lot of cool work with radio telemetry there. So very fun.
Excellent. Okay, thank you so much again for joining us. This is our graduate admissions staff team. You can see I'm there and joined by Carrie, Morgan, and Jordan, who's a graduate assistant in our office. We are on the other end of your email and phone calls and happy to receive those at any time. As we get started, I have a couple of housekeeping details I want to share with you. We are in a webinar, and my understanding is the chat is disabled, but the Q&A function is ready to go. We'll be monitoring, the four of us will be monitoring the chat throughout the evening. So if you have a question, please don't hesitate to type it in there at any time. We'll take a couple of moments throughout the presentation to stop and check the chat, the Q&A rather, to see if there's any unanswered questions there. But you have an amazing opportunity to talk to two current students and the program coordinator. So I hope that you take advantage of that and ask them some really hard questions. Just kidding. Also on the webinar, we are recording this. So if you want to watch it later, you can do that. We will send the link to you in email, probably in a couple of days after this. It'll be on YouTube for you to share. The other thing I'd like to recommend is that you have your cell phone handy throughout this session. We are going to provide a lot of information in a short period of time. In many cases, you'll find a QR code that will take you to our website where you can do your own independent research later. And also when you see this presentation afterward on recording, you'll be able to stop and go back and grab those resources as well. So where we're going tonight, we have approximately 1 hour together. I'm not sure that we'll go that long, but if your questions are engaging and you have them, we will certainly hang on as long as we need to. We're going to ask the program coordinator, Dr. Lesser, to cover an overview of the Natural Resources and Ecology program, what you'll learn, the types of experiences you'll have there, talk about the academic curriculum, how long it will take you, some information about field experiences, both from Dr. Lesser and from students who are living the life currently. Research and internships are a really key piece of this academic program, so they'll spend a good amount of time talking about what that means for you and how you will engage that as part of your academic journey in graduate study at SUNY Plattsburgh. And then finally, their section will talk about the career opportunities you might have when you graduate from this master's program. When the academic piece is finished, we'll have a little break for Q&A, and then I'll turn back into the graduate admissions process where I'll talk to you about the application, the things you'll need to complete it, the timeline, and then we'll turn a little bit to financial aid opportunities, talking about the costs for attendance and how you can pursue some work opportunities to defray that cost. So with that being our backdrop, Dr. Lesser, I'd like to turn it over to you to give us an overview of the program.
Thanks, Michelle. Can you actually flip back now to the faculty slide?
Sure can.
And so I think the best way to start to introduce the program is just to think about the breadth of expertise that we have here as potential advisors and professors for the coursework and your projects or mentoring you through your internship. Like I said, I'm a forest ecologist. Dr. Myhook is an aquatic ecologist who runs the Lake Champlain Research Institute that Allison mentioned. Dr. Mary Aldred is a biogeochemist who does work with wetlands. Dr. Danielle Garneau is a wildlife ecologist, also does a lot of work with microplastics. Dr. Foos is a biogeochemist and soil scientist. I'll skip over to Dr. Tyrrell is an animal physiologist, an avian ecologist. And then in the middle on the bottom row there, Dr. Gervich and Dr. Shi are both environmental planners. Dr. Gervich more on the natural resource side of things and Dr. Shi on the urban side of things. And so all of us together, really span the breadth of natural resources and ecology. And so now, Michelle, if you want to skip ahead. So, this program is a master's that really has strengths in ecology and field biology, along with that environmental policy and planning side of things. And one of the really special things about our program also is that you can either do a research thesis or an internship track within the program. With the research thesis being, more of a project based with your advisor here at SUNY Plattsburgh, whereas the internship, your advisor helps place you in one of those situation in that internship, and Kevin will talk a bit about the one that he has had and is still ongoing working with them. Really great opportunities on both sides of things, and really depending on what career path you want to take, one of those can have more advantages than the other. Another real strength of our program is just where SUNY Plattsburgh is, that we are situated on the shore of Lake Champlain, which is an amazing place to study freshwater ecology. And we also are right on the edge of the Adirondack Park, which is an amazing place to study terrestrial ecology. And scattered throughout all of that are small towns and communities. And so on the policy and planning side of things, in connection to natural resources, it's a really powerful place to live and learn. And so the program is designed that it can be completed in 3 semesters. We'll get that into that in a minute, along with some of the specific courses. But really, the overarching idea behind the program from a coursework point of view is to really get a grounding in higher level ecological concepts and methods, experimental design, spatial analysis, statistics, and applied issues. And in doing that, we offer this really unique suite of classes. We have a whole suite of classes: my forest ecology class, the wildlife ecology, the wetlands ecology, the soil science, river ecology, freshwater ecology, that are all classes that meet once a week for either half a day or in many cases the full day, so that you can get out and actually, apply all of the things you've learned in your undergraduate degree or in other more classroom-based classes. We use the field as our classroom. And we also have a really diverse range, like I said, of research on all of these topics. All of the faculty that I mentioned a minute ago all have multiple projects going on that involve undergraduates and graduate students. So in terms of the coursework itself, there are three required classes. There's a graduate seminar, which is a one-credit class that changes semester to semester based on student interests and whatnot, but is mostly a reading and discussion class that meets once a week for an hour. Research methods is a class where you design your proposal, whether that's for the thesis or the internship option, and that culminates in giving a public presentation on your proposal topic. And then environmental data analysis is a three-credit class that really gets you into, using biostatistics, environmental, based statistics, and with your own data, if you're doing the thesis track and with designing your own project for the class if you're in the internship track. In terms of other coursework, you take two classes in the applied spatial skills category, and those are classes like environmental law and policy, GIS applications, public relations writing, sustainability, and so on. And then three classes in the environmental science, natural resources category, like the ones I've mentioned, forest ecology, river ecology, wildlife, wetland ecology, and so on. You take an additional two program electives that can come from either of those two categories. And then you take 6 to 9 credits of internship or research thesis. And that comes out to a total of right around 34 credits, which you can complete in, 3, or a lot of our students take 4 semesters, just so that they can, not be too crammed with coursework, while also trying to do their internship or thesis. So just as a sample of what that might look like in a first semester, and a lot of the field-based ecology classes most of those are offered in the fall semester. So if you started in the spring, this would actually flip between the second and first semesters. But something like some combination of river ecology, wildlife ecology, sustainability. And then in a spring semester, data analysis, research methods, one of your electives. Starting to take your thesis credits by your third semester along with the seminar, and then completing your thesis or internship credits in the fourth semester along with your final elective. And so not that onerous a course load, really easy to complete in 4 semesters, and also doable in 3 if that's what you decide with your advisor to do. So in terms of the field experience, like I said, we're situated in this amazing place for doing any sort of ecology you can think of between the Adirondack Park and Lake Champlain. And we've got students who, well, Kevin's going to tell you about his internship, but we just had a student complete an internship with the Adirondack Park Agency. We've had a student do an internship with the Adirondack Loon Conservation Association. We have another student who works at the Loon Conservation Association who's doing a thesis option for his master's. And I think, Michelle, if you flip to the next slide, we can start to see some of these. Yeah, so Phil Snyder is using a long-term data set to examine the effects of browning on Adirondack lakes. Naomi was the student who did her internship on loon nesting ecology. Emily Reinhardt just graduated. She was using looking at how Strava, the app Strava, if some of you are familiar with that, can be used to actually inform planning and management of recreational opportunities, and looking also at the conflicts of mountain biking across the Northeast, the conflicts that mountain biking is creating with other trail users and with communities and so on. Christian Gilman is doing an internship with the Adirondack Mountain Club, looking at soil erosion of hiking trails on their property. And then just a few others. Annie Arnold, who's one of my students, is looking at insect communities within a large boreal peatland complex, thinking about how the insect communities change across forested to open peatland gradients in these amazing boreal peatlands that can be found in the Adirondacks. And Megan Bargabos also just finished her thesis looking at wildlife habitat in at the Altona Flat Rock Jack Pine Barrens, which is located just north of here. It is a globally rare ecosystem, and she was using game cameras to look at wildlife habitat suitability over the course of 2 years. With that, I think I'll turn things over to Kevin to tell you a bit about his project and just his general thoughts on the program.
Sure. So where to start? There's quite a bit to touch on. I guess we'll start with the internship since that was the first thing you mentioned. So I first got in contact with Dr. Danielle Garneau and we decided together that the internship track was probably going to be best for me and what I wanted to do with my career, which is hopefully, doing a lot of bird banding and research with species in the Northeast and hopefully in Vermont. So she and I got in contact with the Vermont Center for Eco Studies, which is a group based in White River Junction, Vermont. And I started out by volunteering with them. I'm very lucky that I lived close by. So I was able to form a relationship with them before I, actually asked if I wanted to, or if they would be interested in having me for an internship over the summer. And, I made a good impression, so they were happy to have me. And that internship essentially consisted of spending days out of the week with them on Mount Mansfield at their banding station, which they've been running for a bit over 30 years, looking at the high elevation avian community and what shifts may be happening in terms of demographics or species composition up there, with particular focus on some of the high elevation specialists like the Bicknell thrush, which is a globally vulnerable species. It only breeds at the top of mountains in the Northeast, which is pretty neat, as well as magnolia warblers, myrtle warblers, so on and so forth. And that was a lot of fun. I ended up getting a lot of field experience in terms of the processes of running a banding station because it was at times just me and my supervisor, and I got to work up to a point where I was autonomous. She could just send me out and I would do my own thing. And we would work together at the station to band and measure birds and set them on their way. And that was contributing towards a long running series of data. So that was a lot of fun. And I'm planning to do some more work. The internship track is not focused on research, but I've decided that I also want to do research. So Danielle and my supervisor at the Vermont Center for Eco Studies, we've both put in a lot of work to submit some grant applications. And I got $2,000 from the Wilson Ornithological Society and got a lot of assistantship from the school, which helped with last summer. And I'm pursuing more assistantship through the Cardinal Career Grant for next summer, where I'll be enacting research using radio telemetry to try and understand, when is a bird on the nest or not, without having to go to the nest. So that's the long and short of it. About the program in particular, I've had a wonderful time with it. I'm actually in 2 classes with Dr. Mark Lesser this semester. This is my second semester. Last semester, I had the environmental data analysis with Dr. Mary Aldred. That was a really fun class. It was my first time really working with R, and getting to understand such a powerful statistical tool was very exciting. She's also just a wonderful professor. Research methods was really fun because that helped me, narrow down what I actually wanted to do for my internship, and what were the professional development goals that I was setting for myself while I was there. Let's see, some other classes. Right now I have forest ecology with Dr. Mark Lesser. We've been going to a lot of really interesting sites. Just last week we went to the Albany Pine Bush and Preserve and talked to Neil Gifford there, who's project coordinator, I believe. It's an exceptional site. They are one of the few places in the Northeast that actually uses fire for managing a unique ecosystem. So you get to talk to them about all that stuff, and how they, have learned to use fire to effectively manage such a unique ecosystem in a way that is beneficial for the wildlife and beneficial for the structure and beneficial for the local shareholders, people who own homes next to places that they're going to be burning. So that was really exciting. Grad seminar is very fun as well. He mentioned it earlier. I'm actually leading the discussion this week, and we'll be talking about invasive species ecology and invasive speciation. At what point does an invasive species become a new species on its own? So, spoiler for you, Mark, if you haven't read the papers yet. Um, is there anything in particular, anything else that you'd like me to touch on in the program, or?
I think that's good for now, Kevin. We can let Allison kind of give a similar rundown of what she's been up to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's my first semester here. I'm still pretty new. I came in June. I have been researching microplastics in Lake Champlain through the Lake Champlain Research Institute. I'm collecting some sand samples and sifting through those to look for plastic, and also taking river samples and searching through those. I'm not on the internship track. I'm doing a thesis. Um, and I'm working with Danielle Garneau and Tim Myhook, and they've both been great, helping me figure out what I'm supposed to be doing, um, helping me build my thesis project, my thesis questions. And I'm looking forward to taking data analysis, my seminar next semester, research methods to really start building out my project.
Great. Thanks, Allison. Okay. And so I guess, building off of all of that, what this program really does is, it sets you up for careers as a park naturalist, as an environmental scientist, a planner, a field ecologist, agency fisheries, or with the Forest Service or the DEC as a wildlife scientist or a forester, all of these sorts of things, and many others. The list goes on and on. We've had students now who have graduated, who have gone on to pursue a PhD, so stayed in academia. We've also had several students who have entered into the kind of private sector consulting, and with NGOs as well. And say that as the career path so far, the program is only a couple of years old, so we haven't actually had that many graduates yet. Our most recent or about to be graduate, though, just got a job in Colorado working for a nonprofit there, as the wetland ecologist, and manager for a large park area in Colorado, kind of his dream job. And so we've so far been really successful with our students getting really going on to really great jobs. And I guess, Michelle, this is where you take over.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to thank all three of you. I just learned a ton of information. I'm so impressed at how deep your research is and how passionate you are about the North Country region, which I call home, the lake and the mountains, which is a really fabulous place to not only live, but clearly to study natural resources and ecology. So thanks so much, Dr. Lesser, and then Allison and Kevin have agreed to hang out for a bit. So if you have any questions, students on the call, please put them in the Q&A. Well, they will be monitoring that as we move into the next section, where I get to talk about the admissions part of it. So if all of that sounds great, you say, what's my first step? This is where I come in. So I'll talk to you about the application process, a little bit about some funding opportunities, and then dates and deadlines, and we'll wrap up this evening. First thing I wanted to show you is where you find the application for admission. It's available at apply.plattsburgh.edu or plattsburgh.edu/graduate. It's pretty easy to find on our website. It's not an extensive application, but it will take some time. You will log in and start an application, and you can, at that point, you'll create a portal access with your credentials, so you don't have to do it all in one sitting. That's the good news. You'll be asked to put information about all the schools that you've attended in the past after high school. So all of your university classes. You'll also be asked for your transcripts to be sent from those institutions. We also would like you to give us the first name, last name, and email of 3 recommenders who can be able to talk and will be asked to upload a letter of recommendation on your behalf. That's part of the process for an application. There is a $75 application fee that's non-refundable that allows us to process and give your application really good attention. When you apply to the Natural Resources and Ecology program, you will be asked to choose at the very get-go whether or not you want to take the research track or the internship track. So that's something that's specific, and you heard a little bit about that when our students and Dr. Letzer were talking. So you're going to want to provide some detail about your particular area of interest. As you can see, there are very specific functional areas and research opportunities down to even a specific species that you could study during your graduate program. Your application will cue the faculty into what area you're interested in and whether or not we have an opportunity to go really deep into that subject area with you. So be prepared in the Natural Resources and Ecology application to choose the research or internship track, and then also to provide a little bit of detail about why you want to do that and what you want to do. The faculty in the Natural Resources and Ecology program, if you haven't picked it up already, are very invested in student success, even from that point of application forward. So we want you to engage those. The application process will lead you to having a portal, as I mentioned, and that portal is where you will upload the documents that are required. They're listed here. These are pretty straightforward for you. So what we'll do with your checklist is you'll sit down to make your application. After you pay that application fee, you'll start to receive email back from us that are automated that show you what is still needed in order to complete your application. The Graduate Admissions Office collects applications. We'll answer your questions about what's needed and all the things that you need to get it complete. Our main goal is to take a complete application and send it over to Dr. Lesser and his team, the program coordinators, and they are the group that will evaluate the applications and make decisions. You do need a bachelor's degree in some science-related discipline. If you have any questions about whether your current bachelor's degree qualifies as that, Dr. Lester would be a good place to go with that question. And then also just a note about GREs. If you have a GRE score, just a standardized test, we'll gladly review it, but it is optional. I would say if you think it's going to increase your chance of application, share it. If you don't have one, it's not to worry, you don't need it. Any question so far? I think we have a question for Allison and Kevin, but I think I'll hold off on that until we get through this part. Thank you for the question, and keep them coming, please. With regard to dates and deadlines for application, it is a rolling admission, which means we will take your applications any day throughout the year. But classes start on the first day of 2 terms, and that's where you're going to want to be thinking about your own personal deadline. So the spring term begins in January, about the 3rd week, and the fall term begins in August, like usually the last week of August. We would advise you to try and have everything complete about 6 weeks before that first day of that term you want to attend. Right now, we're collecting applications for the spring 2025 term, which begins in January. So you're not too late to apply for spring. You're also able to now apply for fall 2025 again, which begins at the end of August. The modality and campus for this program, so SUNY Plattsburgh has multiple campus locations and we offer online programs. It's important to note that the Natural Resources and Ecology is not an online program. You must have proximity to our Plattsburgh main campus in order to be enrolled and accepted into this program. So any questions on rolling admissions, please let me know in the chat, or in the Q&A rather. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next part, which is the cost. What will this cost me for the next year that I'm going to study? And Dr. Lesser said that you can do this, and most students do it in 2 years. So you'll want to multiply the annual cost by 2 if you're looking for a total cost. We do not have costs for the 2025-26 year, which is what a lot of the students on this call tonight may be looking for. What you can do is take the actual cost of the current year, 2024-25, and apply a 3 to 4% tuition, or rather cost of living increase to it generally. We are a state university, so our tuition rates are set by the state, and that usually happens in about July. So we won't know for a little bit of time what those actual costs will be. I do want to point out the difference between tuition on campus, out of state, and those different numbers that you see here. You will want to consider whether you have New York State residency, because if you do, you do qualify for the New York State tuition rate, which you can see is a bit lower. Then if you are not a New York State resident, that means you are a resident of any other US state, or you also are an international student from another country with citizenship not in the US. You would not apply for the New York State tuition. You would apply for the out-of-state tuition, or that's basically everyone else. You notice that it's tuition and fees. There are required fees that every student must pay. They amount to approximately $1,000. So tuition is most of the chunk that you see there. Then in terms of the second price point that you see there, it's the on-campus bill. That means if you want to live on campus, including housing and a small meal plan, your fee would be the higher number with the on-campus label on it. We do offer housing for all graduate students in a graduate-specific floor area on campus. So while you're still in a building with some undergraduate students, they're upper class. So if you don't want to worry about housing, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, you can think about the on-campus bill as your total cost of attendance in terms of how much money you might need to find or have in order to come to school with us. Talking next about the financial aid opportunities. So that number might have caused a little bit of a sticker shock for folks. I do understand that. Luckily, we do have financial aid available for graduate students. The FAFSA is only available to US citizens and permanent residents who qualify for US federal financial aid. So if that's not you, hang on for a minute. I have some other opportunities, but if you are a US resident or permanent resident, you can qualify to get some federal loans via the FAFSA program. So it's an unsubsidized loan for graduate students at your level of study up to $20,500 per year. And unsubsidized means the interest on that loan would be your responsibility. There also are federal work study funds, just like as an undergraduate student, the federal work study program, you might have gotten a job on campus working, say, checking IDs or in the library, that sort of thing. We do have some federal work study funded work opportunities on campus that are specifically designed for graduate students. So hang on and I'll tell you about those in just a minute. And then the last kind of federal aid is the Federal Plus loans. And that's just another kind of financial aid that you might be able to qualify for. There is, as it turns out, a whole other 1-hour informational webinar on financial aid. And if you have an interest in learning more about that, you can go on our YouTube channel. When you get the recording from this webinar, you'll be able to see the other webinars that have happened. So we did already host in October the financial aid webinar for this round, but it's available for your viewing. So we'll go into a lot of detail about all of these programs. Tonight, I'm going to touch on them just briefly so you can get the general idea about all of them. The first kind of aid that we have to talk a little bit more detail about for you is institutional aid. That's aid that you only can have at SUNY Plattsburgh if you're enrolled in one of our programs. That includes a work obligation. So basically, it's a job in addition to going to school. And in exchange for you showing up 10 or 20 hours, usually per week, you receive some benefits. And I want to talk a little bit about what those are. And you see on your screen, there are different kinds. There's assistantships, graduate assistantships, which are students who were on the call earlier tonight. Those are graduate assistants. We also have fellowships. And then there are positions in campus residence halls where you can get a room on campus and work on campus as well for a small stipend. For all of these programs, applications are due in February. In terms of the graduate assistantship, these include either full tuition coverage or half tuition coverage in exchange for a work job during when campus classes are in session of either 10 hours per week or 20 hours per week. And you heard some of the work responsibilities of Allison and Kevin as examples. If you're interested in assistantships, the application and the process for that is integrated in the application for admission. So if you go to apply.plattsburgh.edu and you're in your application portal, as you're filling out your application, when you select natural resources and ecology as your program of interest, you will be prompted, here are the assistantships that you qualify to apply to. And we do have a number of assistantships. If you scan that QR code, it'll take you to a web page that will share with you all of the details, including a link you can click on to see not only the graduate assistantships that are available for the academic year, fall 2025 through 26, but also we have 2 positions open in January of 2025, so coming in a couple of months here. That's a brief overview of graduate assistantships. Did I miss anything, my graduate assistants who are on the call?
No, Michelle, I think was it the next slide, we talk about the specific of the natural resources and ecology.
Okay, let me go a little bit further. There we go. Thank you. So for the graduate assistantships, you must be a full-time student. You can take the program in a longer duration, but you must be full-time in order to have that. And here again are the specifics of the graduate assistantship. The program specifics that are available for 25-26 are listed there, and the QR code will absolutely show you a little bit more, a lot more detail and about what those positions entail, the amount of stipend that is included with that. So with graduate assistantships, you not only get tuition coverage, but you also get some money to help you cover your expenses as a student.
Real quick, Joseph is asking for Mark Lesser's email, the Q&A, just to make sure he gets that before we move on.
We actually have that at the end, I think, on slide, but you're welcome to type that in the chat if you'd like.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks for your question. All right, moving on to the graduate fellowship program. There's a QR code here as well. For this program, you must be enrolled in one of our 8 eligible programs. That's the natural resources and ecology is one of those programs, so not to worry. You have to be work study eligible for this program because the funding comes from the federal work study budget. This will only be on campus, and the application process is selective. So if some of our programs are remote, and those students would not be eligible for graduate fellowships. The difference between this program and the graduate assistantships is there is no tuition benefit. As you can see, it's simply a work obligation. The difference between this work opportunity and say a general student opportunity who's not a graduate student or in work study would be, as I referred to earlier, these positions are typically paraprofessional, and they're going to give you experience that you might want to talk about on a resume. So they might be in research, they might be in teaching, you'd be working for a department doing real quality work that might help you and teach you and practice some skills that you're going to be learning in your career, or you're going to be using in your career later. For the natural resources and ecology department, we do have 2 research assistant positions that are available, and that QR code again will take you to more information about that process. It is separate from the admissions application once again, so you'll have to lodge your application individually for that. One thing before we get too much further, a graduate assistantship is your full-time opportunity for work. You're not able to stack on a graduate fellowship and a graduate assistantship. So once the graduate assistantship is the sort of the most valuable in terms of finances position that you could have. If you have one of those, you're not eligible to continue to add on other things. And there are lots of reasons for that, but you can see the $20 per hour is the wage that we have for these positions. If you work 20 hours $20 an hour and you work 20 hours per week when classes are in session, you can make up to $12,000 per year. Applications for that are due on February 15th, and the decisions will be made by each supervisor after that. The next work opportunity our financial opportunity that has a work obligation is campus housing and community living. And these are residence-based. So if you were an undergraduate, you may be familiar with the fact that we have undergraduates primarily living on campus. There are a number of staff that help make sure that experience is a good one for everyone involved. Community advocate is what SUNY Plattsburgh calls, what a lot of schools call RAs, or resident assistants. Those are open for graduate students to apply to. And it's a job that you get that has less dedicated hours. You'll have some meetings, but it's not like a 10-hour-a-week job like some other ones are. But you are responsible for doing things in the residence hall, such as programming, creating educational experiences for the students who live there, for example. Community building things, and some other admin jobs. The Campus Housing and Community Living Office loves getting applications from graduate students because typically you have a few more years of experience under your belt and you provide excellent mentoring for our undergraduate students. So if that's something that's of interest to you, you can get a free single room and a discounted meal plan as a result. So you won't have to worry about housing and not only finding an apartment and finding food and shopping and cleaning, but you won't have to pay for it either if you're selected in these positions. That application is open now and closes on February 8th, I believe is the date. But that QR code on the screen will help you learn a little bit more on it. Next, I'm going to talk about some graduate aid opportunities that have no work obligation. These are more like a grant. We have two of them, the Diversity Fellowship and the Graduate Opportunity Program, or GOP. First, the Diversity Fellowship. This provides either full or half, usually half tuition funding. In the current academic year, you can see the value of that, and it's pretty substantial. We have a limited number of these. It's a very competitive application process, again, separate from every other application. If you want to apply for this, the application is open now. You can scan the QR code there. This fellowship is designed to help students who have already overcome some hardship on their educational journey and who are able to contribute to the diversity of their field of study or to their graduate program. We define the diversity and the hardship very, very broadly, and we encourage you not to self-select to not apply, but to think about how you uniquely bring diversity and how your journey to date may have had some hardships that you have overcome. You will need to write an essay to talk about why and how those adversities and what you're going to bring to your program in the application process. And those are due February 15th as well. A committee will review those applications and make those determinations. This, again, is another opportunity. If you get this full tuition funding, you cannot stack it on top of some other of our opportunities. So this one would be a very financially valuable opportunity, but you can't stack it and get paid for another job if you're getting this one as well. The Diversity Fellowship also is only a 1 year. It's for the first year of your program, and after the first year, it goes away, so it's not renewable. The other positions that I talked about today are renewable, and if, of course, you perform up to your expectations and your supervisors agree. The last program that does not require a work obligation is a Graduate Opportunity Program, often referred to as GOP. I won't go into too much detail. In order to be eligible, you'll probably know who you are. If you were as an undergraduate student in an EOP, HEOP, or SEEK program, you'll know who you are, and you are eligible to apply. If you're pursuing a master's degree or a certificate program of at least 24 total credits, the minimum we award for that is $1,000 per semester, and it can be up to full tuition depending on the amount of funds we have every year for this program. Those applications are also due February 15th, and there's a separate application there. And that is the end of my financial aid opportunity conversation with you. If there are any questions, I'm going to stop and check the chat. You can see here there are a lot of ways to stay connected with us. As I mentioned earlier, you will get in the course of a day or two an email that thanks you for attending with a recording of tonight's session. So you'll be able to replay that. You can email us anytime at graduate@plattsburgh.edu. And our phone number is there. Dr. Lesser's email is on the screen for you there as well. We invite you to follow us on social where we talk, profile current graduate students. We talk about deadlines and help you stay updated. Your next steps would be to visit our website and click apply now. Once you get in there and start your application, that's when we will start to communicate with you about any remaining materials you might need. And we'll be in contact with you all the way through the process to get to the point where application is complete and would be sent to the program coordinators for review and decision. Mark.
So, yeah, I had a few things to chime in with. I know Olivia and Riley, two of our participants, have already applied, started their applications, at least, and Joseph is going to do that soon. Riley had a question in the Q&A about assistantships and housing. And so, Riley, no, there is no housing included with the assistantship. You are kind of on your own, but by all means, your advisor and people here at the university would give you recommendations and help with that. One thing that I'll mention on the housing note that several of our students and Kevin right now is taking advantage of is that the Minor Institute is a nonprofit research institute about 10 miles north of Plattsburgh, and we do a lot of collaboration with them. A bunch of the courses in the program are taught in conjunction with the Minor Institute, and they also have residence housing that is considerably cheaper than on-campus housing, and you get like a studio apartment with a little kitchenette and things, and so a lot of our students have taken advantage of that as a really affordable housing opportunity that we have privy to as through our collaboration with the Minor Institute. So hopefully that answers your question, Riley. The other thing I wanted to just mention for everyone is that as part of the admissions process, once we have your application and myself and the committee start to review it, one of the first things we look for is whether or not you have reached out to faculty that you'd be interested in working with, and gotten and secured a relationship so that when I kind of put your application out to potential faculty, it's not taking them by surprise that you want to work with them. And so it's really important that you make that connection and reach out to faculty kind of as you're applying to the program. So that was just one of the other things I wanted to mention.
Thank you for that. I see a question from Joseph from early on this evening. Must transcripts be sent by the university or can I send them? And the answer is we need them from the university, official transcripts from the university that you attended. If you are currently enrolled in classes, your transcript will show courses in progress, and that's fine if you haven't graduated yet. It's also, Dr. Lesser, do you review unofficial transcripts at all, or do you require them to be official before they can be reviewed?
If a student wants to talk to me outside of the formal application process, and I will gladly look over your unofficial transcripts and let you know if you might need to take some courses to make up some coursework that might not be for credit in the graduate program, depending on what your undergraduate degree is. But yeah, by all means, I'm happy to look over your transcripts and to chat about anything as you're in the application process.
Great, thank you. One question that I get a lot in graduate admissions is, what are you looking for in the personal statement?
Oh, yeah, I think we're looking for, a pretty clear picture of what you want to get out of our program and why you want to be in the program, what your interests are and what has led you to thinking that a master's degree in natural resources and ecology is going to, help you, what it's going to do for you, professionally, um, that sort of thing.
Great, thank you. I think that'll help out some of our future personal statement writers.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Wonderful. Any last chance for questions? I don't see any, so I just really want to thank you, all three of you, for taking your time this evening to share with our prospective students. And thank you, prospective students, for spending your hour learning from us about what your future could be like at SUNY Plattsburgh. I really hope that you learned something tonight and that you are inspired to reach out to some of these folks, or even to graduate admissions if it's easier to remember our email, which is graduate@plattsburgh.edu. We'll be happy to connect you with whoever you need to get the answers that you have, because this is a very big decision, a very consequential one, and it's really important to think carefully and make a good choice. And I think that tonight we have had a great opportunity to hear from the people who are actually living it and actually teaching it. And I'm thankful once again that you gave us the inside scoop.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Thank you very much. With that, I will say good night, and we'll hopefully see you all soon.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thanks.